Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the School of Humanities double major panel session. I am Azila, a Year 4 English Literature and Art History student ambassador, and I'll be the MC and moderator for this session. Before we proceed, I would like to remind participants who have yet to change your display name to kindly change it to your full name. You can do so by following these simple steps on the screen. Next, we have a few house rules set for this virtual session. Please spend some time to read through them. All right, so let me introduce today's lineup. Panelists, please remember to wave and give your widest smile when I call upon your name. So first we have Professor Neil Murphy, the chair of the School of Humanities. We have Associate Professor Ng Bee Chin, Associate Dean of Graduate Education for the College of Humanities, Arts and Social Sciences, and the Faculty Mentor for Psychology and Linguistics and Multilingual Studies double major program. We also have joining with us today as Assistant Professor Michelle Wang, Faculty Mentor for English Literature and Art History double major program, as well as two students, a one alumni and a year 4 student. So we have Ms. Nadia Alang, SoH alumni, class of 2020, English Literature and Art History alumni, as well as Ms. Cheryl Chu, a current year 4 student majoring in psychology and linguistics and multilingual studies. So today we'll be addressing the questions sent to us during the registration period, and we thank you for your enthusiastic participation. We welcome more questions, and if you would like to raise any, please send them in via the Zoom's chat box. You can also click on the raise hand button, and when I call out your name, please unmute and switch on your camera to ask your question. So for participants who are viewing this session from the open house microsite, you can also send in your questions to us via Slido. And while we wait for more questions to come in, let me invite the panelists to introduce themselves, and the professors can share with you about the current and new double major program. So Nadia, would you like to start off? I think we can. Could you unmute?
Hello. Can you hear me now? Yes? Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Nadia. I'm a postgraduate. I recently graduated with a degree in English Literature and Art History. I'm not a star student or anything, but I enjoyed my experience over the 4 years and I got a lot out of it. So I'm here to share with you what I've learned. So that if you think anything I mentioned suits you, or you think, hey, I'd like to try that out, then hopefully I've made your decision making a little easier.
Thank you, Nadia. Cheryl, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Okay, hi, I'm Cheryl. I'm year 4 in psychology and linguistics and multilingual studies. So I think in my studies, I like to research more on like special needs, mental health, and also sociolinguistics and language policy, those kinds of things. And besides that, I enjoy volunteering, so I'm quite active in my CCA. It's NTU Welfare Services Club. So if you want to know about maybe CCA or school life, you can also ask me.
Thank you, Cheryl. Prof. Wang.
Hi, Azila, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Michelle Wang. I'm an assistant professor of English at the School of Humanities. So I primarily teach and research 20th and 21st century literatures, and I'm the faculty mentor for the double major programs in English. So one of which is the English and Art History double major. So I'll say a little bit more about that in a little bit. So welcome.
Thank you, Prof. Wang. Okay, Prof. Ang, hello, welcome.
Hi, welcome to our sharing session. I'm Ng Bee Chin. Most students call me B, and I'm from Linguistics and Multilingual Studies. I'm your psychology and linguistics shepherd, double major shepherd. So if you join us, or when you join us, you'll see me for the next 4 years if I'm still around. All right. My research area is on multilingualism and really looking at the intersection between linguistics and psychology. I mainly work within the scope of social psychology, looking at issues such as multilingualism and emotion and identity and attitudes. So I use experimental methods used in psychology to study social phenomena in linguistics. Anyway, when you join or when you start working on psychology and linguistics, you will be seeing quite a few of us who work in this area. There are about 3 or 4 faculty members in our department, and about maybe 5 or 6 in psychology that sort of work in this really niche intersection. Okay.
Thank you, Prof. Prof. Murphy, your turn.
My turn. Okay. Okay. Welcome. It's good to be here. I guess first of all, I just say my home discipline is actually English literature. I'm a professor of English, but I guess I'm here today really more in terms of the sort of oversight of the double major. For quite a few years now, I have been the sort of point person overseeing the double major programs in our college and more recently in the school. Particularly English and art history, but all the other combinations too. And now, of course, we have this exciting 10 new double major combinations, which we will talk more about later today. And I guess that's the kind of big news from us. So I oversee the new double major program as well now. So I'll share a bit more about that later. So again, welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Prof. Okay, so I think now we're ready to move on to the question and answer segment. So let's move on to address the first question. What made you decide to take a double major? So this is primarily for Nadia and Cheryl. Nadia, would you like to share with us first?
Okay. So what made me decide to take literature and art history double major? I always already knew that I wanted to take literature because I've always excelled at it in secondary school and JC. Not that you need to in order to like take this course, because I had a batchmate who came from poly, and she didn't have any background in literature. She didn't know the terminology that was kind of already in our vocabulary. So she did struggle a little bit at the beginning, I think, because she had to learn adapt to the writing styles and learn new words and terminologies. But eventually, she did get the hang of it, and by the second year, she's doing really well and not really struggling anymore. So yeah, that's just one point to make. Like it's not necessary to be good at either of their disciplines in order to take on 2 of them as majors. Anyway, so back to the question, what made me decide to take a double major? I was already writing lots of personal poetry as well, and after A-levels, I came across this double major program in NTU. It didn't stand out very much, to be honest, because I didn't know what art history would be about, so I wasn't jumping on it. I was still exploring other options, other possibilities, but I was intrigued because I've never heard of it. And even though I didn't know art history, I knew art. I mean, who wouldn't nowadays? We're exposed to so many pictures and there's so many museums and stuff. So I've been to lots of museums. I went on a literature trip to England, met artists, poets, and all that. So, I like art. And then I went for the information session, like you guys are doing now. And I learned the structure of the whole thing. And then I learned that we'd be taking modules, from separate disciplines, and that it'll be just a few modules more than a single major lit program. And I thought, well, why wouldn't I do that? I mean, it's perfectly pragmatic, to take 2 majors in 1 degree, 2 for the price of 1. Also, it sounded like a lot of exposure to me. And I liked variation. I don't think I would fare well in an environment that didn't allow me to explore different subjects in a way that is as in-depth as I want it to be, which I'll talk about more later on when we talk about the workload and everything. But anyway, so after going for the information session and getting to know more about it, with my love for literature, one subject, and my appreciation for the other, for art, then I decided to apply for ELA.
Okay, thank you, Nadia. Cheryl, what about you? Why did you decide to take on the Psychology and Linguistics and Multilingual Studies program?
Okay, for me, because I took psychology in poly, so I wanted to continue pursuing that when I came to uni. So when I was looking at NTU's course website and looking at what a psychology program is like, I also saw that it was offered together with linguistics as a double major. So I thought you know, I've always liked language, and like maybe I should take this opportunity to study it more. Yeah, so I thought they would also go well together, these two majors, and maybe in these 4 years I can explore more and find out, you know, how they can work together more. And I feel like now I've discovered that linguistics is also a lot more interdisciplinary than I expected. So even though it's about language, but then I've had to delve into physics, anatomy, and even like social and political context. So I think it's been really interesting so far.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl and Nadia. Prof. Murphy, would you like to speak more about the new double major program? So far we've only been introduced to ELA and PSLM. Do you want to elaborate more? Oh, you mute.
Okay. Yeah, I think after I'll talk a little bit about the double majors first, but then I think maybe Michelle and Bichin can talk a bit about the ELA and PSLM as well. Okay, so the new double majors, we you know, as we've said, we obviously have a few graduates here and 4th years from English and art history, psychology and linguistics, but we're starting on a new journey now, I suppose. We're extending those double majors to include all of the disciplines in the School of Humanities, which are Chinese, English, history, linguistics and multilingual studies, and philosophy. So as it stands right now, these are 5 single major degree programs. With the new double major program, you are able to take, you can take any 2 of these subjects. So any combination of these can be taken. And basically, I think there are a few aspects about these combinations which make them unique. A little like the English and art history and psychology and linguistics, basically each of these are equal-sized majors. So you come in, you equally belong to English and art history, or with the new combinations, any combination of these subjects. So if you do Chinese and English, you are 50-50 in each of these subjects. And this is important, I think, because sometimes what are classified as double majors out there are not really quite straightforward double majors. Very often it's a single major with a small second major. This is actually a genuine double major program. It's also a specially curated degree. It's not simply that you do, you know, you come in as a history and philosophy double major, for example. It doesn't mean you're really studying 2 separate majors, although of course you are doing that. In addition, though, when I say that they're specially curated, what it really means is that we have, for example, we have an inter-major category, which basically is where points of overlap between the 2 disciplines you're studying are identified by us, and we try to tease out various different implications here. So, for example, I mean, going back to the ones we have in English and art history, we in that inter-major category, we have subjects like aesthetics, which actually doesn't even come from art history or from English. It comes from philosophy, but it's a clearly a subject that speaks to both English and to art history. In the new combinations, you know, that there are subjects like, for example, if you took a combination of philosophy and Chinese, we have a very strong Chinese philosophy section within our philosophy department. So obviously the kind of all sorts of combinations and sort of connections can be teased out there. Of other obvious cases would be things like Chinese and history. You do a combination of that. We have quite a few specialists in East Asian history within our history department, and of course this speaks also to some of the stuff you're doing in Chinese. So I guess that's the point. I mean, you are doing 2 separate majors, but we're very keen on teasing out the combinations between them. What are our aims for this degree? Well, I mean, we want to give you depth in 2 disciplines. We want to give you like high-level training in 2 disciplines, but we also want to identify the sort of cross-fertilization of ideas between the disciplines, because this is really important nowadays. You know, we have all sorts of intellectual aspirations for you in these degrees, because you know, I've taught double major students in the past, and it's amazing the connections they see between disciplines that perhaps are not always evident if they're not studying two things simultaneously. So that's really useful. More practically, and I mean, I know the practical stuff is important as well. Ultimately, we want you to have a fabulous education, but we also want you to have a fabulous career afterwards. And really what this does, it doesn't just keep your options open, although that is part of it. It also helps you to broaden the set of skills that you bring when you go to the job market or to postgraduate studies later. You're more broadly equipped in two different areas. I mean, the sort of the hard stats that seem to bear this out. The Graduate Employment Survey, which is conducted by MOE, was just released yesterday. And I can tell you now, we're very pleased, because the salaries for the double major students who have just graduated are the highest of all arts, humanities and social sciences graduates in Singapore, which is quite an extraordinary feat for a relatively new degree. We've come top of the salary range. Secondly, we're almost at the top in terms of employment, in full-time employment rates. So employers out there want double majors. They see the value in bringing the kind of multiple skills that you bring. So anyway, I guess that's it. But I mean, I guess maybe Michelle and Bichin would like to talk a bit about the double majors that they've been working with as well. So I'll leave it at that. Okay.
Yeah, Prof. Wang, would you like to add on to especially about the ELAB program?
Okay, sure. Thanks, Neil and Azila. So hi everyone. So I'm going to be talking about the sort of nuts and bolts of the program in terms of what you can expect in the 4-year curriculum structure. So this is a 4-year direct honors program. We draw on the expertise of the two schools, the School of Humanities and the School of Art, Design and Media. In addition to NTU's new core modules that will be taught across the university. So this is the interdisciplinary collaborative core requirements. So most of you will have read about this in the news recently. In addition to these, English and art history double majors will do most of their courses across these two disciplines. So students begin with 4 compulsory core modules in each school. In English, it's Intro to Literature, Survey of English Literatures 1 and 2, as well as Intro to Singapore Literature. In art history, it's Intro to Histories of Art 1 and 2, Intro to Histories of Southeast Asian Art, and Exploring Visual Culture. Now, don't worry if you don't remember all of this. We barely do sometimes. This information is available on our website, and our program manager, Elaine, is excellent. Both she and I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have. So once you've completed the compulsory core modules in both disciplines, you have the opportunity to select from a series of prescribed electives. So there are 2 types of prescribed electives here. One is the major prescribed electives. In this case, you will complete 26 academic units for each major. So that's about 7 to 8 courses in English, 7 to 8 courses in art history over the 4-year period. So some of these courses include issues in global contemporary art, faith and art, advanced studies in drama, and more. The second type, which is the one that Professor Murphy mentioned earlier, the intermajor prescribed electives. So you have to complete 8 academic units here. So that's about 2 to 3 courses, depending on what you pick. Now, these intermajor prescribed electives draw on knowledge from across disciplines. So they speak specifically to your interests in the intersections between English and art history. Some of these courses include War in Literature and Film, which is a course that I teach, History of the Book, as well as Advanced Studies in Film. So these courses are taught by my colleagues, for instance, Dr. Catherine Heinley and Dr. Cheryl Julia Lee, whom some of you may meet later during the open house at 12 noon and 3 p.m. With the double majors, you also have the opportunity to submit an interdisciplinary graduating thesis. So this is known as the final year project. So the point of this training in English and art history is that this double major prepares our students for careers in the arts and education, for working in museums or with archives, or journalism and editorial positions. So it's an ideal program for students with a lively interest in these areas. It's highly competitive. We do our best to select students whom we think will likely be well prepared to embrace the challenges of the double major. And more importantly, of course, those who are passionate about and invested in both fields of study. So our first batch of English and Art History students graduated in 2020, which is very exciting for all of us. And we look forward to welcoming some of you in August. Thanks.
Thank you, Prof. Wang. Prof. Ong, would you like to speak more about the PSLM program?
All right. A lot of the information you can actually get online, so I won't sort of go into too much details and bore you, except to say that, you know, I am sure, like all new students, you kind of go around and a lot of you are kind of confused and you don't really know what you want and what to look for. But really, if you have, I think the main kind of students we find who enroll in PSLM are those people who have interest in the mind, all right, what goes on inside the mind and what goes on out there in the world. So if you are interested in the connection between these two and you have an interest in how language is a tool or is a way in which we express what goes on in our mind, this is the course for you. A lot of people think that when they think about linguistics, they think it's about grammar, but linguistics is actually a lot, as Cheryl would have found out, a lot more than that. And I know some of you have done courses like ELL, which is English Language and Linguistics, I think, something for your A levels. And I would also say that linguistics is way more than just that. So what do you get in a course like PSLM? In psychology and linguistics, basically you get to sort of pick the kernel of what is psychology and what is linguistics, and these two forms a really, really good connection, mainly because linguistics often studies the phenomenon of the mind through language. All right, so we look at how you speak, your behavior. So so your speech behavior and what that tells you about your gender, your identity, your attitude towards the world at large. And psychology gives you, of course, the basic psychology approaches to the study of the mind. But what is more important is also that psychology gives you the quantitative, extremely quantitative approaches to studies of languages. So it trains you in quantitative reasoning, argumentation, and it also trains you in the technical experimental approaches to the study of languages, which you will not get as much of in linguistics if you had just done a linguistics degree alone. All right. And we also have like a wide range of subjects that's outside of psychology. As Cheryl said, linguistics is extremely interdisciplinary. So there are students who can sort of pick up computational aspect of linguistics to study Google matrix search if you are interested in that. And there are students who actually look at politics and ideology, and you can also look at philosophy. So within linguistics, you can actually branch out to even other disciplines apart from psychology. All right. And so what psychology and linguistics can offer you is really like a portal to these two very, very different worlds. All right. And as Michelle pointed out, it really is a matter of looking at two baskets of concentrations, and there are core modules that you will have to plow through, and then after that selecting what really the topics that you are really interested in. So it really gives you a lot of scope. A lot of people think that when you choose a double major degree, you're somehow locked in. You are locked in a way that you are more you're encouraged to focus. But remember that within these two different focus areas, you have a lot of freedom to choose. All right. I think that's what I will say here, except to say that so far up to now, and Cheryl can vouch for that, is that the students we find in these programs are usually highly, highly motivated. And I've taught them, and they're really a joy to teach because they are interested. And they often do this program not because of some kind of promise of a job at the end of the line, but they do this program because they are interested, and because they are interested, they get a lot out of it. Okay.
Thank you, Profs. Definitely. The students in the double major programs are highly involved and highly dedicated to doing their best. So I think we already have a first question from Slido. What is the workload like for a double major compared to a single major, normal single major degree? Cheryl, maybe you'd like to start us off?
Okay, so normal degree would mean a single major degree lah. So I think if you just compare double major and single major, it's not that much of a difference, because in total, if you count by number of modules, then double major is just about 4 more modules, which I think is okay, quite manageable. And they also give you like a rough study plan that you can follow so that you know what the 4 years ahead are like, and you can sort of tweak it to suit you specifically lah. So if you can think of it, it's like in double major, you take all the unrestricted electives, which are the free electives, and you concentrate them on the other major that you're doing. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that if you feel like you'll be very busy and you can't do other things with your uni life, you can still do things with your uni life if you plan correctly lah. Yeah.
Thank you, Cheryl. Nadia, how is the ELA workload like compared to the English, just doing a single English major? Are you muted? Okay.
Okay, so the expectations you get from a lit class is very different from that in an art history class. So I say the workload is not necessarily heavier, but it's more varied. You definitely get to do more interesting stuff in art history, but you get a lot of public speaking skills from both. There's presentations and seminars all around, and participation counts for a lot in art history, like a lot more than in literature, because there's a lot more seminar style going on there, because you're also watching films and giving your opinions on and thoughts on art in class itself. And then, so with that kind of participation style in art history classes, you kind of learn how to bring that over to your literature classes, which mostly tend to be more lecture-like, but there are also some seminars where, because more contribution will lead to greater discussion. So it's more valuable if you are able to contribute in class. Then we also have varied assignments. So you get more group projects in art history, and you also get out of the classroom more. So there's a lot to look forward to. And of course, at that time, it just seemed like a lot of work, because you have to write reports about museum visits. You have to write, you have to submit like little assignments along the way. But when you think about how much you're getting out of it in terms of like exposure and experiences and knowledge, then there's already a lot of material for you to work with anyway. So that's the kind of workload you get from a double major degree. And like in terms of AUs, as Cheryl has pointed out, you don't get a lot of UEs. So if you wanted to take up, let's say, a language course, you won't get very far, because you only have 2 UE modules to clear, 2 unrestricted electives to clear. So yeah, there's that to think about. Also, it can be quite daunting at times, because it wasn't all smooth sailing. You are, after all, trying to like juggle from 2 different schools, two very, very different styles of working and teaching and writing. And there'll be periods where there feels like there's a lot to do, just like Cheryl says. Like you feel like there's just so much to have done every day, and so much to look into, research into. But I think the important thing is to start from the beginning. And as Cheryl said, our coordinators are very nicely, lay out the kind of schedule that they would recommend you to stick to, so that you don't like fall off balance or burnout and that kind of stuff. So, so that's, I think the important thing is to start from the beginning. I wouldn't have slacked off so much at the beginning if I had known how it would all connect in the end. But yes, right from the beginning is where I would start. And I'm really speaking from a looking back perspective. So, maybe I did fine, along those years, because I remember enjoying a lot of the lectures, about Southeast Asian art best, the architecture, the stories. They're all very fascinating stuff. So yeah, if you can just learn to appreciate what kind of things you're exposed to in different environments, then the workload won't seem so daunting all the time.
Okay, thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Cheryl, as well. The next question that we have, I think Prof. Murphy can take it. It's, how is the double major program different from similar programs offered by other universities in Singapore?
Okay, the deadly question. Well, I mean, when I spoke about the double major a moment ago, and I mean, this applies to the 10 new ones, but also English, art history, psychology, linguistics. One thing that we're very mindful of here is that we're really committed to depth training in two distinct disciplines. I mean, as Nadia says, this sometimes brings you, I mean, it's simply the variation that you have to deal with across the two subjects. But it's also important to remember that these are two equal majors. They demand equal amount of your energy and time. And if we're talking about, I think that the term double major is sometimes used in Singapore to mean you're doing a single major and a small second major. This is certainly not the case in NTU. It has never been that way. The double major for us is 50% in each discipline. And the reason that is so important, and I mean, it's up to students who are interested to really go and sort of check the different programs and see the distributions. Is a double major really a double major, or is it a single major and a second major, which is a very different thing. I think it's important that we have that kind of depth training in two disciplines, because when you join in first year, I think quite a lot of students would have a slight preference for one discipline rather than the other, but have a secondary interest in the other. That can change during your 4 years. It does change frequently, I think. You may have equal interest in both, and then by the end of it, you decide you really want to focus on one. So I think it's very important that you have that depth training in both, in case you want to go on to do postgraduate studies. You need the depth training in the two subjects. So again, using psychology and linguistics as an example, if you want to go on and do a master's or PhD later in either psychology or linguistics, you can. If it is a single major with a small second major, you cannot do it in the small second major in almost all cases, because you don't have enough training. So to me, that is it's a structural thing. It's not really an intellectual thing, although it's connected to that. I think it's very important. How do we fit two full majors into your time here? Well, I mean, I guess as Nadia sort of suggested, and so Cheryl, there's you have less of the kind of general electives that you can take. We call them UEs. In fact, they're now going to be broadening BDEs. But I mean, so they're the electives outside your majors. In fact, you have slightly more with the new double major combination than you had in the earlier forms. But so we use up quite a lot of those kind of general electives. The assumption is that you already have such a diversity, both within, for example, history and philosophy. You've got so much choice, maybe 50, 60, 70 modules to choose from. So you're already getting that kind of broader training. So anyway, the main thing to me, honestly, the most important thing I think for students who are embarking on this journey is to do your research. Make sure that you understand, like, is what you assume as a double major really a 50-50 double major? If it's not, then you have to think, is this what suits you? If it does, great. But we're very upfront about this right from the very beginning. It is an equal emphasis in both disciplines. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Prof. I think there's a great lead into our next question, which is what happens if one realizes that they are unable to cope with the double major program? I think Prof. Wang, you can start us off.
Sure, thanks, Azila. So we do have a system in place to support students who face difficulties in coping with their program of study. So to begin with, we have a student care manager whom students can approach if it's a personal or psychological related issue. All students are also assigned an academic mentor when they join the program. So for instance, with the English and Art History double major, you have an academic mentor in both programs. So you're always very welcome to approach your academic mentor for guidance about courses and specializations. We welcome you to come talk to us about these things. And of course, if it does eventually come to the student deciding that they cannot or they would not like to continue with the double major program, our double major administrator will be able to advise the student on the processes of switching to a single major if this is what the student chooses. So that there is a support system in place to help students cope with the challenges of, I guess, college life in general. Yeah, thanks, Azila.
Thank you, Prof. Wang. So one of the hot questions that we received was, do I need to do 2 FYPs in the double major program? Prof. Ng, would you like to take that question?
You can, but not many people do. All right. Mainly why? We have a couple of students who did that and they did very well. So suddenly the option is there. So there are some students who will do a final year project in psychology and another one in linguistics. But they are really for people who are clearly very, very committed. But most of our students, I would say about 85 to 90% of our students actually only choose to do one. And mainly because the final year project is, as you can see, is a kind of major project. It's like doing 2 modules at the same time. So there's a lot of time commitment and a lot of attention and energy needed. But what is really exciting about the final year project is an experience. Cheryl, are you doing? I think Cheryl must be doing hers now, right? It's an experience that you will never forget, because I don't think up until you do your final year project, you would never have had to work on something in such a focused manner for so much of the time and which takes up so much of energy. So students produce a piece of writing and research that is about 10,000 words in length. And it's not just about the word, it's about the idea, it's about coming up with an idea that is original, and then shaping it with the guidance of a one-to-one help from your supervisor, shaping it and then producing something at the end that is really yours and your contribution to research. So many students find that very exciting, and several of our students actually end up publishing their work in peer-reviewed journals. And that journey, because it's so involved and so highly tailored and personal. And this is the reason why most people only do one FYP and not 2. Okay.
Thank you, Prof. Prof. Murphy, do you have anything to say about doing 2 FYPs?
I think people should do 3 FYPs. No, okay. In the English and Art History degrees and the PSLM, students have the option to do 2. I mean, as Lee has mentioned, I would think the vast majority opted for 1. It's sort of that by the time they get to 4th year, they have a pretty clear idea of what pathway they want to go on, and they tend to emphasize that. I mean, I agree with Lee. It's a really significant experience, and I think students get an awful lot out of the FYP. In fact, I mean, some of the students are actually thinking about their topics kind of years in advance. It's quite extraordinary. So your FYP becomes an accumulation of all your interests anyway. I mean, one thing with the new double major, we have made some adjustments given the fact that students had students had in practice not been taking two double majors in almost all instances, some exceptions. What we've made some adjustments to the curriculum, so students now with the new double majors moving forward will opt for one. They will no longer do two. So it's when you get to the end of third year, basically you will have decided which area you want to go into. So they will choose one. The reason for this is partly because, and it's a huge amount of work, especially if you're doing FYPs across different schools and so on. But also there is the issue of we were trying to, the issue we alluded to earlier, that you have so few unrestricted electives to do a language or whatever. We're trying to free up a few of these, free up some space for people to do extra things like that. Because I mean, it is a common thing that students want to do languages or do a minor or creative writing or something. Now they can, so they do one, and the other 8 AUs, 8 academic units are freed up for other courses. Yeah, so that's the one major change in the new double major.
Thank you, Prof. Murphy. For the next question, it's more about the admissions process. So the question is, are there going to be interviews or any other form of assessment criteria? Cheryl, do you remember what it was like 4 years ago?
Vaguely. So when I came in, there was a written essay test and then an interview. But I think you don't have to worry too much because they just want to see like when you're writing, because they'll give you maybe a topic related to the two majors. But if you really feel that, oh, I don't have such deep knowledge, I think it's okay because they want to see like your interest and also, you know, how do you think? I think that's more important. Yeah. So, and also like how you articulate your thoughts and when you speak during the interview. Yeah.
Yeah, Nadia, it's the same for the EMA program, right?
Is it? I don't remember. I don't remember a written assignment. I remember the interview. There was an interview conducted by 2 professors. Of course, I was nervous, so I cheated and I did a bit of research, see what's up in the art scene. But I don't remember applying that to what I said to in the interview. I remember feeling pretty calm at the end because, you know, I got to talking about art and literature and what I thought about it, what I knew about it, what I thought of the relationship between the two, which, you know, was quite interesting because I never really thought about it. So yeah, I mean, I guess as long as you're talking about something you like, then it will feel less like an interview than a conversation.
Yeah.
So it will be fine.
Prof. Wang, would you like to add on with that? Like, what do interviewers look for in the interview, or how is it going to be like?
Sure, Hazila. So Cheryl and Nadia have basically covered that process. It's an interview. It's a writing test followed by an interview. So, I mean, in terms of what I look for in interviews, and I suppose this differs slightly with each interviewer that you meet. So typically I assess 2 aspects. The first is interest, and the second is, I guess, in some sense, preparedness. And I don't mean prepared for the interview, but I mean a broader preparedness to undertake, I guess, the rigor of the program, which I guess in some senses circles back to this first issue of interest. So the point here is that we want you to be a good fit for the kind of work we do. So in English, a basic requirement is you have to love to read because you're reading hundreds of pages every week, as I'm sure all of you know. So you have to love to think about, talk about, write about books. So we're looking for fit. We're looking for your ability to undertake the kind of work you need to do, and your willingness and passion to do it. So essentially, that's the sort of thing I look for in an interview. Yeah.
I remember the interview being stressful, but it was a really nice conversation that I had with the professor who was interviewing me, which was Prof. Murphy.
I remember.
Prof. Ng, what do you look for in the interview for a PSL specifically?
Oh, well, a different bunch of things, but the main thing is that what Michelle said, it really is a passion. That's what we look for, and the kind of intellectual curiosity and And so, as Cheryl said, we still have that. They have to answer a question, which is a phrase to focus on the intersection between psychology and linguistics. And like we say, we don't expect you to come knowing everything about that topic, because that's not the point. We want to see, what that particular topic sparks in you. And so basically for the interview, just bring your best intellectual curiosity, and show us, show us what are the kind of crazy questions that you have. And we always think that makes this kind of a quality usually makes the best student, students who have burning questions about the field.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Prof. Murphy, do you have anything to add on about
Yeah,
the interview?
I think there's not much left. I mean, look, I agree completely with Michelle and B. When I'm interviewing, I want like I sometimes say to students, look, like I'm going to spend the next 4 years of my life with you, so why should I do that? And I mean, there is one real answer, and that is, like, you're really interested. I mean, and it's kind of strange. I mean, Michelle mentioned kind of broader preparedness. I mean, in terms of your kind of, are you ready for something like this? But I mean, I'm even less ambitiously in some ways. Are you prepared for the interview? It's amazing. I mean, I've seen students who turn up for interviews and they will say things. I mean, I remember asking one student some years ago, the sort of obvious thing, do you like to read? And he said, I don't like reading long books. I mean, that's a terrible thing to say when you're applying for English. I mean, I have no idea where he is today, but do your homework before an interview. If you're applying for a degree in philosophy and history, you need to know a little bit about these subjects. I mean, as B says, you don't need to come as an expert, but you need to be able to say why you want to do this. Why do you want to study philosophy or history or Chinese or linguistics? You will be asked that question in some shape or form. Absolutely, definitely. So, like, what are you bringing to it? Where's your interest? And I mean, honestly, the vast majority of students applying for the double major programs and actually for all the degrees are pretty well prepared. They do their homework. They know what they're doing. But some people, even if they have the skill sets, they don't really prepare well. Just be able to answer a few very obvious questions. You're applying for a degree. Why are you applying for it? What's your interest? Show me why you're passionate about it. Honestly and truly, I mean, I know nowadays we're very open to people from diverse backgrounds in terms of their educational background, in terms of their skills. We have people from IB, A levels, poly, international students, and they're all bringing different things. But there is one thing they must have, and that they must be really interested. If they're not, it doesn't matter how many points you have, actually. So anyway, that's really it. We value that this is, this is a school of humanities. You have to be interested.
Yes, thank you. Actually, Prof. Murphy, can you answer the next question? It's, can students still apply and be considered for admission for the double major program, even if they don't meet the prerequisites?
I mean, what I will always say to when people ask these questions is, I mean, look, just apply. We have various different kind of processes in place now. I'm not saying if you apply without anything that you will get in. I mean, I obviously can't say that, but we do consider people with a diverse range of skills. I mean, I have interviewed, I said this previously, I know, this is going back 5 or 6 years ago. I remember interviewing a student who was really brilliant in the interview. His A-level scores were not so good. In fact, they were quite poor. We actually, he was the last student admitted that year. He had the lowest points, but he joined us. And he graduated 4 years later with the highest GPA we had had to date. He got a high first-class honors degree. He was brilliant. Just JC didn't suit him. It happens. So, I mean, all the more reason why the interview is important. If you get to interview, you can make up an immense amount of ground. Yeah. So you know, apply.
Thank you, Prof. Murphy. Okay, so sadly, we're almost coming to the end of the session. So our last question is, what are the career prospects for the double major program? Prof. Wang, maybe you can start us off.
Yeah, thanks, Azila. So I guess I sort of covered some ground here, but the point here is that if you're joining us in the English and Art History double program, we assume that you have some perhaps sense that you would like to work in a related industry when you graduate. So what we try to do is to prepare our students for careers in the arts and the education, and potentially perhaps even policy making in these areas if you're keen on the civil service, for example, or working for museums or archives. So part of that training here is to prepare you for those sorts of careers. So let me just take so I think we have so most of our students let me just take a quick look. They do go into, of course, as imaginably education, but also public administration. Those are sorts of careers that our students go into. And of course, there's the usual info and communication, advertising, arts, entertainment, with students who work with museums and so on and so forth. So of course, our data is somewhat limited. We've just graduated our first batch of students, but typically students go into these sorts of industries. So we try to have a rigorous program in place to prepare you for careers in these sorts of places. Now, of course, with the new double major program and the new curriculum that's coming for the August intake, there is also a compulsory internship component. So we believe that including all of these sorts of components will prepare our students for the job market and employability more generally. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Prof. Wang. Prof. Ang, what about for the PSLM program? What are the career prospects there?
Oh, well, the sky is the limit, but I shouldn't say that. It can't be an astronaut. But there are so many things that you can do. So our students, quite a few of them actually ended up in a speech science program. They actually applied for the very much coveted speech pathology program that only admits about 20 students every 2 years in Singapore. And some actually applied to the Ministry of Health for scholarships to go overseas to do their the degree in speech pathology. And several actually ended up in public service, in the health service. A couple of the students that I know giving advice or consultancy to say the health programs on communication models. So basically whatever career that is offered to you in humanities and social sciences, you have access to. Mind you, remember that this double major program is very niche in the sense that we don't get a huge number of students graduating each year. So we are talking about a very, very small group of very sort of a select students, which is why I think Neil talked about employment statistics, and which is why they are kind of sought after, because I think there is a realization that the students are specially trained, all right, and in that two different disciplines, and what you come up with is like a very polished gem. All right, so of course you can do like Neil say a secondary major somewhere or in a different context, but this is clearly very, very different from the double major programs that we actually offer. I think the students here will testify to that what they are getting is very, very specialized training, and on top of that, which is something that that is not emphasized enough, is that you get faculty who have that particular mindset to actually nurture you along the way. So basically, I am, for example, a PSLM person. I did my whole degree focusing on psychology and linguistics, wrote my thesis on psychology and linguistics. And you get several people like that in both linguistics and psychology. There are people in psychology who actually spend their whole life sort of working with it on this intersection. So what you are getting is a special attention from this group of people to help you shape your career. And I think I'm quite confident in saying that you don't get that anywhere else apart from in SoH or in NTU.
Thank you, Prof. Ang. Definitely, we're a special bunch of students who are specialized in two different but interconnected fields. So I think, Cheryl, we're both in our fourth year. What are you looking towards in terms of career after May?
Yeah, I think it's a very relevant question for us now. Yeah, but I think as what the prof has said, we don't have that larger group, so we can't really see where they went yet. But I think that it will depend on your personal interest as well. So some of my friends, they want to go into teaching, or they want to go maybe healthcare or special needs. I think, yeah, as what Prof. Ng said, I think if you offer in the two major single majors, that is also what we would be positioned for, but just we have both. Yeah. But I think what I wanted to add is we don't really have to depend on our major to boost our career prospects. So if you're interested in something like, let's say, special needs, you can go and intern or you can go and volunteer in these 4 years, and then you can boost like how your major relates to that and how you really want to pursue that and how your experience will help you in the future.
Nadia, do you have anything you'd like to add in terms of career prospects? Where are you going? Where have your friends went?
Well, I am back in uni. That's how much I enjoyed it. I think there are 7 of us that graduated together. 2 of us are in uni, other than me, doing research in art history. So, they're pursuing their interest in that, and they're doing like a lot of field research and working with professors that we already kind of had contact with during our studies here. I myself am working with Prof. Neil on various projects. Also worked with Prof. Michelle Wang also. So it's very interesting, the academic life. Professor in the making. No, not really.
Looking forward to that. Prof. Murphy, before we end, do you have any last words that you'd like to say?
Yeah, I mean, just to follow up on some of the things that have been said, I mean, one of the perceptions about people doing degrees, even in single majors or in arts and humanities, social sciences, is that there's a huge percentage of them go into teaching. And I mean, I have students who say, I don't want to study humanities because I don't want to be a teacher. I mean, statistically in Singapore, we have the numbers. Something in the region of 15 to 20% of people from our kinds of disciplines go into teaching. It's less than 20%, and as low as like 12, 13% in some cases. So it actually isn't the primary career of choice anymore. I mean, perhaps it was at some point in the past. Nowadays, I mean, people go into, there's a lot of people work in public administration, government jobs, civil service, museums, galleries, the arts industries, information, the media. So there's a huge range. And the other thing I suppose and Nadia just spoke about doing postgraduate, she's working on her MA, but there are a lot of people we have a very high percentage in our school of students who go on to postgraduate studies, and it's much higher than is normally the case. I think that's partly because there's a lot of interaction between students and faculty all the way through their degrees, and that kind of nurturing process is very evident in all of our degrees. So we have a very high percentage, and that is for us a significant kind of career pathway as well. I mean, Michelle, who's here, she was a former student at NTU many years ago before she went out and gathered many degrees elsewhere as well. So I mean, it's this kind of thing. It is part of a sort of process, and it adds. I think research is very much a big part of our lives, but it's also part of a lot of the students who are interested. We managed to integrate them all the way through. So yeah, so I think with the double majors, we're seeing. I mean, Bichin mentioned kind of this sort of intersection thing. I work in literature and art, so I mean, I'm kind of perfectly positioned between English and art history, and so does Michelle and one or two of our other colleagues. So there are certain kinds of people here who are interested in those crossovers, and I think that's why the double major is so perfect for us and hopefully for you. Okay, well, that's it.
That was a great ending. Thank you to our panelists for joining us and taking the time off. Thank you for all the participants too, and I hope you have enjoyed the session. If you have more questions about the double major program, do chat with us via the live chat app on the Open House School of Humanities microsite, or you can sign up for one of our virtual interactive sessions between 22nd to 26th February. So the schedule is available on the Open House SoH microsite that you can find here. So thank you once again. I hope I see many new faces in our new double major programs, as well as in ELA and PSLM, and I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Azila. Bye.
Thanks, Azila.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.